Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, where we talk about the continual pursuit of the section hiker.
And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. I wanted to come on with a quick update before we get to today's guest and our Let's Talk Gear portion of the show. I wanted to first of all thank our awesome producer for all of the Hiking Radio Network podcast, Steve Adams, or more commonly known as Mighty Blue, for all the editing work he does each week. It is simply amazing. Thanks to all of my guests, past and future, for being willing to take time and come on the show. And a big thanks to our gear enthusiast, Steve Kammeyer. Steve and I did not know each other before all of this started, but now it's like we've known each other for years. And now I want to thank you, the listeners, for giving me and this podcast, with the spotlight on section hikers, a listen. By the time you hear this episode, we should have close to 12,000 downloads, and I am just shocked and thrilled at the same time. For just starting in December of 2019, I think that is awesome. The podcast seems to be evolving, and I am getting more comfortable as your host and can't wait for you to hear what we have in store in the upcoming months and this fall. As you heard last week on Mighty Blue's podcast that released on April 2nd, and my most recent chat with Wheezy P on my last episode, we are hoping to spread positivity in the hiking community amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Please tag us in your Instagram post by using the hashtag HRNSpreadPositivity. I seem to be posting more on Instagram lately, and I'm going live to have mini hiker chats for the month of April. You can find out more about that on my Instagram by following me at Jester Hikes. You can follow the Hiking Radio Network on Instagram as well at Hiking Radio Network. Thanks again. Be safe out there. And now on to today's show, where you are going to hear about why our guest carried a 7-pound rock on a section hike. And in our Let's Talk Gear portion of the show, Steve and Greg Bell talk about their hike to the Pfeiffer Horn. And now on to the show. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Don Bates, aka Right Turn. Don currently lives in Maine and started section hiking the trail in 2015. Don has hiked with the Fat Guys, Gals on the trail, which is part of Mighty Blue's group that gets together once a year to hike on the Appalachian Trail. She also has had quite the journey herself on the AT over the last several years. On this episode, we are going to take a journey with Dawn as she takes us through her timeline of hiking and trail events that have taken place from 2015 until now. Welcome to the podcast, Dawn.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Looking forward to getting into this and getting your story out there for the listeners.
Yes, thank you for doing this. This is wonderful. This is great to highlight section hikers. So thank you so much for you and Mighty Blue for putting this together.
You're very welcome. This has been a lot of fun. I'm just adding to my trail family as we go along, and welcome to my trail family, Dawn.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I've learned in talking to section hikers, I'd like to take our listeners back to how our guest actually got started section hiking the trail and what motivated them to do so. So you started section hiking in 2015 because your kids left, and now what? Explain that statement to us and how that first section hike went.
So it was around February 2015, I decided to do a section, and I day hiked, but I had never backpacked before. So started doing some research, and my kids were leaving. They were graduating high school. My daughter was moving to New York, and my son was off doing his thing. And I really did. I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself now? they're gone. They're
a little bit of that empty nest syndrome, right?
They just, up and left and didn't look back. So I thought, I was just always been active, and I had been doing CrossFit for about a year or so, 9 months to a year. And that really just started giving me a lot of empowerment to go out and do something out of my comfort zone and push myself. I love to be challenged. I love goals. So I started researching. I thought, okay, I'm going to do Maryland, starting at Penmar down to Snickers Gap, over Memorial Day week. And so I planned out 7 days for those miles and got some gear, and had no idea what people meant about weight in your pack. Didn't have any clue. That didn't register with me at all. So I borrowed some gear. I bought some gear. And by the time I got dropped off at Penmar, I was right around 50-ish, 55 pounds. I mean, I had packed my gear. I had packed my food for every single day, and I had rice and all this heavy stuff. I thought I was being really good about, being prepared with food. And I got a half mile into that state park from Penmar. I was going south. I got a half mile in, and I just dumped a ton of stuff, ton of food. I just couldn't carry it.
All that took was a half mile. So describe us what your pack, like, what did it look like?
It was horrible. I had things, it was all, oh my gosh, things hanging off, and just, I couldn't get everything in. So I had things strapped on the outside. It was just a hot mess. That poor shuttle driver probably thought, she's never going to make it. She is going to, that's it. I'll be picking her back up.
So you were like the traveling salesman going down the trail. I mean, you could have just started selling stuff off your pack, right?
For sure. Food. For sure. So once I dumped some food, I thought, okay, well, I have a resupply. This was Saturday. I had a resupply on Wednesday. Just keep enough food to get me to Wednesday when I get to Harper's Ferry. And then I can
Now, wait a minute, Dawn. Okay, wait a minute. So you took 7 days of food to start off with, and then you had a resupply?
Yeah, because I didn't have any. I thought I was trying to be efficient and carrying everything so I wouldn't have to get off trail. I had no idea what I was doing. I just didn't have any clue. So I had to figure this out along the way. So I dumped some food and continued on, and I got to the first summit right before the shelter at Penmar, and it just downpoured. It just completely opened up. The trail flooded. I just had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had to set up in the rain. I can't count how many times I packed and repacked that pack, just trying to fit everything in. And, I just thought, okay, I've got to make it back to my car, because I parked my car at Snickers Gap. I'm like, I got to figure this stuff out. I got 7 days of this. I gotta make it back to my car. And at that time finding a shuttle if I wanted to come off trail wasn't really an option. I never researched that. So in my mind, I have to get back to my car. And this
all right. So basically, let me paint this picture here. So this is going to be good. So you've got this empty nest thing. Your kids have left the house. You're like, all right, I'm going to hike the trail. Let's go down to Maryland, and let's just shove everything we can think of in the pack that we might think we need for 7 days. Food. I mean, who knows what else was in there? It weighed 50 pounds. And, I might run out of stuff after a couple of days. Let me send myself a resupply. And then you figured out, okay, I got to get rid of some of this junk. I got to do this. I got to do that. So now somehow you survived that trip, because at one point when you and I were talking, somewhere along the way, you told me you started to love every minute of it. So take me from that first trip to explaining to the listeners what that meant.
So when you're on the trail and you have everything on your back and you're surviving with everything on your back, that's just a sense of empowerment of, I didn't need all those miscellaneous things that I have at home. I didn't need the makeup. I didn't need the clothes.
Wait a minute, Dawn. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
No, I didn't bring makeup or anything. I'm just saying.
Okay, I
didn't bring anything. But I just thought in everyday life, going to work, you've got all these what you think are necessities to make it through your day, and when you're on the trail, it's just you're raw. You're a sweaty, hot mess, and everybody else is too. And it gives you a sense of being free. And I love that. I love the fact that I could just be and not have to worry about being anything else. And all I had to worry about was getting to the shelter at night, hiking one foot in front of the other, getting up to those, being my first trip there. I picked Maryland because it was supposed to be the easier of the trails, and it's midway. So I tried to pick something that was reasonable and realistic. But
that makes a lot of sense because Maryland's not too bad, too bad.
But when you don't have anything to compare it to, it seemed like it was so tough because I didn't have any experience. I didn't have anything as a point of reference. So it was really hard mentally and physically for me. I was overweight, and I just didn't, I pack. I didn't know what I was getting. I didn't know what I didn't know. So you get out there and each day got better and better. And my pack was feeling better. I was packing better. I was setting up camp easier. And I just got into the rhythm and I was hooked. I just thought it's just such an empowering feeling to get up day after day and do this and push through the pain, push through the suck. It is sucky. You got to embrace that suck. And, you choose to be out here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I we choose to be out there. So, I didn't feel as though complaining would have helped anything, although there was many swears thrown. But
although it's been fun so far for you and I to go back and laugh about this.
Yeah, for sure. And then I got back to Snickers Gap. I got to my car, and on my car, it was really cool. So there was a note on my car from somebody from Maine that was saying hi. Yeah, it was really cool. I still have it. And they were from Skowhegan up in Maine. And
that is so cool.
Yeah. So that was a really cool thing to get back to my car and have a note on it from somebody else from Maine.
Very nice. Very nice. So basically you saw what you didn't need. You got rid of stuff. Mm-hmm. And later that year, in 2015, you had a very, very special section hike, actually back up in Maine, that started in Monson and went south to Caratunk.
Right.
Explain to us that trip and why that was so special.
So I have a friend who is a veteran, and he got me, he educated me on this project called the Summit Project. And the Summit Project is where there's fallen heroes that have their families have a rock engraved with their name and their rank and some dates. So you can go in and to the project and check out a rock. I didn't know if you could specify a size of a rock.
Okay, so I'm thinking at this point like a little pebble, right? Pebble. Like a little, something you pick up and go, I'll take that all the way wherever I'm going.
Right. So I, did the paperwork and I went and picked up my rock, and my rock was 7 pounds. So
what?
I just, okay, let's take this rock with me. I didn't figured.
Okay, so you went to get the rock and it was 7 pounds.
7 pounds.
The look on your face had to have been like what the?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to pack this thing. So,
but you dedicated yourself to it. So
yes,
you picked up
I was
the
already
rock
committed. I was already committed. And I in doing CrossFit, we have these hero workouts. So they're in remembrance of a fallen veteran, whether it be a firefighter, a police, or military. And during those workouts, it really puts things in perspective of pushing through, these poor soldiers and firemen and police do some heavy duty stuff to keep our safety. So for me to go into these workouts that are maybe 20 minutes long, you gotta dig deep and just get it done. So,
Right.
so having this rock, that was what I treated it as is this is part of those workouts. This is a workout. And what you do is you bring the rock with you on your journey, and then you write a letter to the family after, and you just kind of give them an overview of what kind of journey you went on, where you went. And it's just to help keep the memory of that soldier alive. And then you bring the rock back, and it's just such a great program. And that rock, Sergeant Cole, he taught me a lot of good lessons on that hike of just perseverance and pushing through when you've got extra weight that you're carrying. And it was so good. So we started parked in Caratunk, got a ride up to Monson, and hiked for 4 days back down to my car. And again, it was one of those situations where you got to get to your car. That's my ending point. I'm still new to this, so having an escape plan, I didn't think of those things. You're out in the middle of nowhere, so it's like, I don't even know if I'll have cell coverage.
Yeah, I think I remember that section. It didn't seem too bad. Were there a lot of stream crossings that you had to encounter?
Yeah, I had to ford, I think it was right around 5-ish parts, and some of them where you have the rope, so you got to hold on to this rope to cross. That was new to me. I had no idea. And then of course it was the end of August, and it was right in the middle of Maine black fly season, which
another thing you learned about
another thing you learn really quickly of, oh my goodness, they're relentless, and you can't get away from them.
Now, did you end up encountering, since you were going south, did you end up encountering any other hikers on the trail that were going north? Did you tell people about what you were doing?
Yeah,
Give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, each night there was some people at the shelters, mostly section hikers that I encountered. There was a few through hikers, but it was mostly some section. And then actually the first shelter that I got to, it's such a small world. There was three gentlemen there, and they were all from the area that I grew up in Massachusetts. And one of the guys actually taught high school at the same high school I went to.
Nice,
so it's just such a small world in the middle of backcountry Maine. You don't know who you're going to run into. And then you just have these conversations and connect with people. And I told them about, each time I had a meal, Sergeant Cole's rock was sitting right next to me, just being a part of the journey.
That is so cool.
And just bringing awareness to this program. That's just so amazing.
That is so cool. Like I put myself right there with you. Like I was like at the shelter eating lunch with you. So that is so cool. So let's go back a little bit. So we've left the house, we've gone to Maryland, we've perfected our pack, we've carried this rock on a section hike. We've got a story about that. You're going to read us a little bit later.
Yeah.
And so now in 2016, it seems you began to have a purpose to your section hike and where you chose to hike. So one of these particular hikes, you wanted to see what's called the Secret Shelter. Tell us where that was and why that appealed to you.
So that's in New Jersey. And the Secret Shelter, I just heard so many cool things about it. The two donkeys, Jake and Jake, the two donkeys that roam around, and the plush grass. And this gentleman who was a through hiker, an older gentleman, opened up his land and built a shelter, built a privy and an outdoor shower. And he just maintained the field beautifully. And it's just a little bit off the trail, and it's on Gut Hook. Well, it was on Gut Hooks as a water source versus an actual shelter.
Gotcha. Because I was going to say, I don't remember hearing, that has got to be new. I don't remember hearing about it. Now I want to go back.
Yeah,
I don't remember hearing about a secret shelter. That's very cool.
It was the most beautiful night. It was a full moon that night, and just the field was just like sleeping on a pillow of grass. It was so lush and so thick, and the outdoor shower was spectacular. It was even warm, and it was just so nice. And it was all open to the sky. At nighttime, the sky, you could just see all the stars and the moon, and it was just such a peaceful area, and there wasn't many people there, and just the donkeys around. It's just a very cool place. But picking places when you're section hiking for particular things is it makes it so much fun. because it doesn't feel like a job or anything. It doesn't feel like I have to follow a certain mileage. It doesn't feel like I have to follow, if I've done this and then it's the logical steps of going through the states. I just pick and choose randomly. If there's somebody that wants to go with me hiking and wants to do a certain section, then let's go.
I've got another guest that you'll hear in one of the episodes. He calls it the beauty of being a section hiker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly one of the things that we talk about is we can pick and choose, and we can decide, where we want to go, and we want to go, see the secret shelters and different things like that. So was that the year? I know in our original conversation, you said that you got a new pack, you started defining your gear. Is that when that happened during that section, or was that after that?
It was starting there. I love REI. I love being able to try out gear. And if it doesn't feel good, just bring it back in exchange for something new. So I'm a big fan of REI for that fact of, if I get something and I take it out and I don't like it. I think in Connecticut and New Jersey are two states that I have literally come off trail and went to an REI and exchanged a pack or a tent or something, just to go like, it didn't work out so well, so let's try something else. And so
and that's another thing about being the beauty of a section hiker.
Right. You're only out there
if
for
it doesn't work, you're only out. Right. If it doesn't work, well, I mean, we do end up probably spending a lot of money, but that leads to one of the next things I was going to ask you. You told me in your original email that hiking was your passion and that passion was fueling you. So what happened in 2017 as we move forward in your section hiking, and how that mantra kept you going to get you back out on the trail? Because something happened between 16 and 17.
Yeah, I'm always telling people, if you get to Maine through hikers or section hikers, you get to Maine, New Hampshire, reach out. I will be more than happy to help you in any way that I can. So I was following this through hiker, and he ended up having to come off trail for a house issue in a storm. And then he wanted to get back on, but wanted to do a flip flop. So he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to come to Maine. Would you help me?" It's like, of course. So we talked and we planned, and he says, "I'm going to start at Katahdin. Would you want to do that with me?" So I'm like, "Sure." I'll agree to anything. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. Sure.
Dawn, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm just going with you here.
And so we planned it all. He flew in, I picked him up, and we headed out to Baxter. We had to, due to the rain and some weather, we had to wait a few days, had to hang around in Baxter to get up to the summit. So finally we had a great day. We set out on the Hunt Trail, 6:00 in the morning. We got going. I had a knee replacement surgery the year before.
And Dawn, that is not an easy surgery. Knee replacement is terrible, isn't it?
Right. And I mean, I recovered really well, and I had it all taped up for the hike, and everything was good. But unfortunately, I was using my other leg to do all the climbing as my lead leg. And unbeknownst to me, I was developing a bone spur going up. So by the time I got up to the top, we did reach the summit. I was in a ton of pain. And it was just kept on getting worse the more my knee swelled and getting worse. And so we were coming down A-Ball Trail.
Now, to clarify, all of this was happening as you were hiking the Hunt Trail up to Katahdin, which if any of the listeners have not been up there, okay, first of all, doing that a year after knee replacement and then developing a bone spur, I don't know how you did it.
I mean, I felt really good. Even leading up to, I had done a bunch of hikes leading up to Katahdin. So, I mean, I was feeling really good. And for the fact that I just didn't realize that I was using my left leg more than I should. And, with all the climbing and stuff, to save my right leg, my right knee, I was overusing my left. So I was really compensating on my left for my right. And I didn't quite grasp that at the time. And then when I got up to the top, I was like, oh, it's really kind of twingy. But I just thought, we just climbed a mountain. So it's going to be. But by the time we were heading back down through Tundra Spring and got to the at the beginning of A-ball, it was really, really very painful. Luckily, you could only butt slide going down A-ball in the beginning because you're basically on the side of the mountain and it's just all bouldering. But once that started stopping a little bit, I just couldn't walk anymore. I just couldn't put pressure on without excruciating pain.
So, Dawn, at this point, how far down are you? Because A-Ball Trail starts, I think, right there at Thoreau Springs, somewhere around there.
It does. Yep. You just
okay.
passed
So,
the
how
spring.
far down A-Ball? Where were you when you realized something's not jiving here?
It was probably like an eighth of a mile. It was, we were
Okay.
so slow moving. I was so slow moving that I just couldn't. So we got to about 11:30 at night and we were still above tree line. So we still had about 3 miles to go.
Okay. So, what time did you guys start that morning?
6
so
in the morning.
Okay. So, over 12 hours at this, 14, 15 hours.
Yeah. And so we, at 11:30, we decided, we had food, we had water, we had lights, we had clothes. It was extremely cold. The wind was really, really picked up and it was a very cold evening. So luckily we were prepared and my friend had a Garmin InReach. And so at 11:30 at night, we thought, okay, this isn't life threatening, but we definitely need some extra help to come down.
And how far at that point to the end of the trailhead where you're back to the car or whatever? So how far did you have to go?
We were still about 3 miles out.
Okay.
Yeah, we were still about 3 miles
11:30 at night, 3 miles out. You guys, were you just sitting on the trail or
No,
still trying to move?
We were still trying to move. Yeah, we didn't stop. Even if I had to, I was sliding on my butt most of the way. Like he had borrowed a pack because he only had his through hiking pack. So he had borrowed a pack at the ranger station and he took out one of the divider for the bladder and I stuffed it down my pants because my pants were all ripped at this point and I had nothing. My pants were all ripped. And so,
this really isn't funny what's happening to you, but that's hilarious.
Looking back, it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe what we went through.
So you guys hit the button on the
we hit the button,
InReach.
and so then we connected with the rangers, and they said, "Okay, we're going to start. We'll send some people up." And so we said, "Okay, we're going to continue because eventually I still need to get down, so we're going to continue, and they will have to come up the same trail that we're on. So there's no chance of us missing each other." So we continued on, and so finally, about 2:30 in the morning, we met up with them. And
wow. So it's almost 24 hours.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 24-hour mark in a few hours. And so they splinted me up, gave me some ibuprofen and stuff, and they just helped me, had somebody more to lean on. My poor friend was, we were both exhausted. We didn't stop. We didn't, we just knew we had to keep moving as much as we could. So we got
did
down.
you guys have enough clothes and stuff? Did you start to get cold? Were either of you hypothermic or?
No, we did good. This was, even though it was the end of July, it was still a very cold night on the mountain because of the wind. The wind was picked up pretty good. But no, we were very well prepared in clothing, and we had food and plenty of water. We filled up before we headed down. So I felt good about making those choices of what we brought with us, and we were well prepared on there. And so it got to be we continued on, we got to be about 5:00 in the morning, and the ranger started saying, okay, we might need to think about maybe a short exit, which is where they'll come in and pluck you out with a helicopter. And I thought, nope.
Wow.
Nope. I'm making it out of here. I don't want to inconvenience anybody. I need to just get off here. And another hour later, and we just weren't making any progress. So we still had another, 1.5 miles, 2 miles to go at 6:00 in the morning. And so the ranger's like, we need to just make plans now. You're not at fault. You were prepared. This isn't going to cost you anything. The Maine Forest Service will come in and just hook you up to a ranger and just pull you out. So,
Wow.
after many tears, and I just felt kind of defeated and I was exhausted. So, and everybody was exhausted. So I said, okay. So we still had to get down a little bit more to a landing where the helicopter could plop somebody down. So we made it down there. We waited. And all of a sudden you could hear the helicopter coming, and there's this ranger hanging from the bottom of the helicopter. And
Unbelievable.
yeah, and he came, they just lowered him down. And within a minute or two, I was hooked up with him. He was amazing. They stopped all the traffic coming in and not coming up the trail and stuff. So we just literally plucked out, started lifting, the helicopter lifted, and we just soared over the treetops.
In the picture, it was light outside, so it had to have been 24 hours or later.
Yeah, it was coming on to the 26-hour mark by the time the helicopter got. And so they brought me to the entrance. It was probably a good maybe 7-minute helicopter ride over, hanging underneath as A-Ball Trail got further in the distance from me. And I'm just staring at it thinking, oh my God, I feel so defeated. But they were great. They took me, the ambulance was there. And again, it wasn't life-threatening, but I definitely needed that extra help to get down. And
they will make the call. I mean, they're not going to make a call and have you do that if it's not necessary.
Right. And it was, for the fact that we've been out there for so long and just wasn't making the progress that we needed, there was just no sense in pushing any harder than what we have already done. And so they got to the hospital, and, I got treated and got some pain meds and some steroids to get the inflammation down. And once the inflammation went down, I healed up fine. But those rangers were amazing. And I am so thankful for their service and for them coming out. And I'm thankful that I was prepared. And sometimes stuff happens. And
yeah, I mean, that was out of your control. I mean, they could probably tell, listen, not your normal person is just going to hike up Katahdin and act like something's wrong. I mean, something was wrong.
Yeah.
And you were no longer mobile. So yeah,
right.
The Forest Service Ranger, they're awesome.
They are. And I've become friends with a few of them still currently this day, we're still friends and talk often and stuff. And just really, it was a traumatic experience in the fact that, just being under that helicopter, and
I can't even imagine
thinking, you go out and you're prepared, and you things are going well, and so it was a great day, and just sometimes just stuff happens and you just got to kind of roll with it.
Well, I don't know how we move forward from that, but currently right now toward the end of 2019, wow, Dawn, that story, basically you've completed right around 500 miles of the trail in your section hiker quest. Mm-hmm. And even after that, you're still, wanting to go out and section hike. Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. About a month after that trip, I was scheduled to go out with the fat guys and gals back in the woods to do 5 days in
That name cracks me up.
I know. From Gorham, New Hampshire over to Grafton Notch. And I was so nervous that something bad was going to happen again. And so those guys were amazing. We had such a good time and everything went well. But wow, you just, it really kind of puts things into perspective of, stuff can happen, and you just gotta be prepared and gotta roll with it, and physically and mentally prepare yourself for these hikes in between.
And sometimes going really, really lightweight is not worth it. It's not worth it.
Right.
So one of the goals of this podcast is to actually get the word out there to section hikers that it's okay to section hike and not be a through hiker. And you can still hike the AT while you have work, you have family, and you've got other things going on. And one of the really cool things that you and I talked about in our initial talk was that you choose to section hike and you have really no desire to through hike the trail. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I don't know as if I would enjoy being out for 5, 6, 7 months doing, I think it would feel like a job, and that it would just be too much. I don't have a desire to be out there that long. I love being able to go out a week, 2 weeks if I wanted to, a weekend, however long I want to go out, and then pick my sections that I want to do. And I just find that to be so much more enjoyable. And it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel like, I just got to plow through these miles.
Right. It doesn't feel like I have to do this kind of thing.
Right. This year I selected for the Fat Guys and Gals Back in the Woods trip this year. I was organizing that, and we went to Virginia, and we did great. Then started doing Damascus and Grayson Highlands. I've always wanted to check out those ponies, and that was spectacular. That was so good. I loved being there, and it's so much fun picking the sections that you want to go do, and just enjoying it, stopping on those side trails and enjoying just taking in the scenery and everything, and where you just don't feel as though you've got to plow through. I mean, through hikers are amazing, and I think that's great that people do that. But for me specifically, I like to stop and enjoy my time out there, and just make my miles reasonable for that section. And I don't, I'm not a 20-mile-a-day hiker. Being a section hiker, I'm not a 20-mile-a-day. And I don't know as if I'd ever want to aspire to that. I just do what feels good and get to where I need to go to get the section done.
Do your thing.
Do my thing.
I can think of no better way to close out your interview than just what you said. So now we've come to the point in the podcast where the guest is going to sign off for us by reading their own journal entry, statement, or quote that will inspire us to keep hiking section by section.
Okay. So this is a letter that I had once I carried for the Summit Project. I carried Sergeant Cole's rock with me. And then what you do is you write a letter to the family after, just sharing your experience and your journey with them. And so I'd like to read the letter that I had wrote to the family to close this out. Dear Sergeant Cole's family, my name is Dawn Bates. And first off, it was truly an honor to carry Sergeant Cole's journey rock on my AT hiking trip. Whew, brings back memories. And want to share the experience with you. The Summit Project is an awesome program, and I'm so happy I was able to partake in helping to carry the memory of your family on my hike. In the beginning of 2015, I set out on my first backpacking experience, 7 days hiking through Maryland on the Appalachian Trail. This was quite the undertaking for me, as I've never done anything like this before, but I was hooked. My second AT multi-day trip was I brought Sergeant Cole with me through the Summit Project, and here's our story. I want to say that every time I thought about adding that extra 7 pounds to my pack, I thought about Sergeant Cole and all the selfless soldiers carrying way more than my 35-ish pounds. Really humbled me and felt empowered to push through when I thought I couldn't do anymore. We parked the car in Caratunk and took a ride to Monson, and we were going to start and make it back to the car in 4 days. We set out in late August, and not really realizing that in the backwoods, there's right in the middle of Maine, the black fly season. And boy, that was a rude awakening. From the moment we stepped onto the AT trailhead in Monson till we hit the car south in Caratunk, we battled swarms of flies, and they were just relentless. We got to the first shelter on the AT and met up with 3 men that were out for a few days from Massachusetts. Funny thing is that you never know who you're going to run into on the trail, and come to find out they were from the same surrounding towns I grew up in Mass. One of them was actually a teacher at the high school that I went to, and another was a firefighter from the town next door. Such a small world. I took out Sergeant Cole's rock and shared his story and shared about the Summit Project as we all had dinner at a fire and shared stories, and it was a clear, warm night. We continued on the next day, summiting a peak and down to our next shelter. And wouldn't you know, it started to rain and then downpoured. The trail was so incredibly muddy in lots of spots as there was rain earlier in the week as well. But this just added to the experience because there were so many times where I just had enough, was tired, was hot, wet, and just kept on sinking in the mud and hard to make any traction. And still being new to this whole backpacking thing, I was questioning my every life choice that got me to that moment. But then I would think about Sergeant Cole and others go through on a daily basis to fight for our freedom, and soon the self-doubt and the pity party ended. I was powering up the trail. I had been doing CrossFit for about a year prior. We have hero workouts in memory of fallen heroes, so I quickly learned from that to push through when you think you can't. Your mind will quit before your body, and you just keep pushing through and embrace the suck. We made it to our second shelter, very wet and muddy, but all in one piece. And on the trail, that's a successful hike. I set up shelter, made some dinner, and again shared the stories with other hikers that were spending the night. I would place my rock right beside me and proudly shared his story. The next day was not raining, but was just as muddy as the previous day. So tramping through deep mud was going to be the theme, and we continued on to our summit of the day. It was a clear, peaceful day and didn't see many hikers, so we were just enjoying the solitude we were given. In these silent moments, I thought a lot about soldiers, what soldiers must go through, and being a civilian, I can't even wrap my head around it. But I did feel a sense of pride carrying his rock with me. I felt like I was part of something much bigger than me and was very humbling. Being out in the woods and having nothing but what you choose to carry with you is an empowering feeling, just knowing that you have everything you need to survive with you and everything else is a luxury and not a necessity. I love the feeling of just being me and hiking my hike. I am not a fast, but I'm determined. I was overweight, mid-40s, empty nester that battles with depression. And when I'm out in the woods, I'm just Dawn in the raw. No labels needed. We all hike the same steps, no matter who you are. And that to me is just freeing. We made it back to the car 4 days and 25 miles later. Having him with me changed the way I think and pushing through on hikes. And I found an inner strength that I didn't realize I had. Sorry. I dug deeper and pushed harder. I took on the weather, mud, and bugs and just rolled with it as I choose to be there. And with those choices comes good, bad, and ugly moments. In those moments, you realize there is always a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you just stay focused on the mission, you can push through more than you anticipated, and then you have growth, both physically and mentally. Thinking about Sergeant Cole and bringing him along on my journey will forever be a fond memory, and I hope he was looking down and smiled at what we accomplished. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful program and allowing me to share in his ongoing story. The end. I don't realize.
Oh my God, Dawn.
Didn't realize.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for, bringing more light to section hiking and all the joys that it brings. And I hope I see more people on the trail.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for being a guest on the podcast. I am truly amazed with your strength, courage, and determination to keep section hiking. Not many people would carry a 7-pound rock around their house, let alone through 25 miles of the Maine wilderness. Thank you, Dawn, and thank you, Sergeant Cole, for your service to our country. Next up, we have Let's Talk Gear with Steve Kammeyer as we continue our talks about gear. Welcome back to Let's Talk Gear with Steve Kammeyer. For this episode, not only do we have Steve back with us, but we are also joined again by Greg Bell. Steve and Greg are going to talk to us about a particular hike they took together to an 11,331-foot peak located in the Lone Peak Wilderness area of the Wasatch Mountains in northern Utah, a place commonly known as the Little Matterhorn. We'll hear about this peak and the proper gear for this type of hike. Welcome back to the podcast, Steve.
Thank you so much. I am excited to talk about some mountains.
And welcome back, Greg, to the podcast.
Hey, Julie. Great to be back.
Thank you for coming back. And all right, Steve, tell us the name of this mountain peak you guys are going to be talking to us about and why you and Greg decided to take this hike.
The Pfeiffer Horn in the Wasatch Mountain Range. The Wasatch is the range that kind of towers over Salt Lake City, Utah. For those of you that have been fortunate enough to be out to Salt Lake City before, all you have to do is look to the east and you cannot miss it. There is this gigantic range that just towers over the whole eastern half of the state. And the Pfeiffer Horn, or as it's known, the little Matterhorn, because it is just this giant triangle of just straight up ledges that rises way up out of the middle of absolutely nowhere. It's a very fun hike. It's a very weird hike. It's a very weird mountain because it is not only one of the most primitive and one of the most out of the way peaks in the entire range. 90% of the Salt Lake Valley cannot see it, even though it is one of the highest peaks in the range. It's one of those optical illusions. It kind of just gets lost because it is so remote and it is set back so far away from the city. So getting there is a heck of an adventure for sure, but it is definitely worth it. And once you get up there, you are afforded some absolutely amazing views.
Perfect. And so why did you guys decide to take on this hike in particular?
I had been up there a few times before, and I think this is only the second or third time that Greg and I had a chance to go hiking together. And the first couple of times were more or less like national park type stuff. We did get into a couple. We did like, Angel's Landing, which is a little bit of a nail biter,
oh my goodness,
to say the least. Yeah. But other than that, it was just mostly kind of, laid back hiking, put in the miles, see the sights kind of stuff. And I kind of wanted to get Greg out of his comfort zone a little bit, you could say, and get him into.
Well, I think you did.
Yeah. And get him up into what I call the mountains, the actual mountains. So this was a pretty easy choice for us. And I mean, we got super lucky. We did this, 2 summers ago now, and Utah was going through one of the worst forest fire, wildfire years that they have ever had. And just for days, weeks, months, I was living out there just coughing every day and smelling smoke from sun up to sundown, and constant headaches and all that stuff. And Greg flies out to Utah to join me in the first couple of days he was there. It was still smoke and nasty and cloudy skies, and I was just really bummed because I'm thinking, once we get up there, we're not going to see much. And by the grace of God, the one day that the skies cleared up, a storm came through, cleared everything out, and we had a chance to see those absolutely beautiful sights from the very top. So it was just a gorgeous hike.
And I think we're going to talk about that storm in just a second, but I know you guys had more than a one-day adventure. So Steve, real quick, talk to us about that first day and where you decided to camp that night, because Greg made a YouTube video of y'all's adventure, and your camp that night was absolutely gorgeous. So talk to us real quick about that.
Yeah. When you leave, you actually leave the valley floor, the Salt Lake Valley floor, which sits at about 4,200 feet. And you drive up Little Cottonwood Canyon, which is one of the more famous canyons. Little Cottonwood is known for their skiing resorts, snow ski. Little Cottonwood is home to Snowbird and Alta, and some of those resorts that are known around the whole world for their snow, greatest snow on earth. We truly have it. But anyway, so you drive up to the trailhead, which is about 7,600 feet. So it's a pretty healthy drive to get from the valley floor just up to the actual trailhead. And then leaving the White Pine Trailhead, there's a few different directions that you can go. And regardless of which direction you go, you're going to see something incredibly awesome. So from there, it's about a 2,000-foot climb to get to the Red Pine Lake, which is where we camped at for the first night. So it's a bit of a haul. There's a lot of rocks. There's a lot of tree roots. And usually it's very, very wet, just because it is the Wasatch Mountains and there's snow up there for 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. So during those 2 months that there's not snow, it's always wet. So it's a little bit muddy, a little bit slippery. There's some wet rocks and some wet tree roots, but basically you're climbing about 2,000 feet over 3.5 miles to get from the trailhead to the Red Pine Lake, which is truly just absolutely a beautiful alpine lake.
And Greg, this is where I'm going to bring you in. You documented your guys' trip, right? And the YouTube. Oh my goodness, both of those YouTube videos, day 1 and day 2. I mean, in your drone work and things like that, phenomenal. And that's one of the main reasons when Steve was telling me about this hike, he's like, "Oh my God, we got to have Greg back on," because he documented the whole thing. So, but I saw something in the day 1 video,
right?
There was a lightning strike, and talk to us about that lightning strike in particular, because you pointed to it in the video and you were like, okay, I'm going to go hunker down now.
Yeah, actually, I didn't see the lightning strike where it happened until I was actually back reviewing the footage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do remember that happening. And from being out here in the East, and, we've got the Black Mountains, which we spoke about, just stick up above everything, but they're only 6,000 feet. Just being that much higher, and still, we were kind of in the valley. There was some still ridge work to do to get up above it all, but you are still, that high and out in the open, exposed. The thunder sounds differently. I mean, it really does sound like you're closer to it. It's a much more, I think, standing there in the middle of nowhere, at 10,000 feet, it kind of adds to the ominous feeling. But when the thunder cracks, it's pretty intense. It was actually awesome, but intense too.
And it was intense, and it was intense in that video because I saw it and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that was amazing. And so, Steve, on day 2, you guys head up to the Pfeiffer Horn itself and describe to the listeners what that hike itself is like once you leave the lake there and start heading up to the peak of the Pfeiffer Horn.
Yeah, now things get a little bit more fun for sure. Well, first of all, that storm that we were just, talking about, that is the storm that thankfully came in and blew everything out for us. So although it was a little bit scary there for a minute, a little bit hairy, a little bit wet, a little bit loud, that is what kind of blew everything out, blew out the, smoke for at least the next 12, 16 hours. So once we got up there, we were able to see what was going on. But yeah, okay. So you leave camp, you leave Red Pine Lake, and there is a head wall behind Red Pine Lake that is literally vertical. I mean, it is straight up about 750 feet. It is all class 3 with a couple of little spots I would say are probably more or less like a class 4 climbing. There are a few spots where if you let go, you're done. It's over. It's just, game over. So you are definitely white knuckle gripping, hanging on for dear life. And once you finally get to the top of that 750 foot head wall, you're still not even close. Once you get up there, though, you do get to see the other side of the range, which is looking out onto Utah Lake. And that's just an absolutely beautiful view, too. So you kind of chill out there for a minute. You take in the views. It's a beautiful 360 degree views. And once you get up this head wall is really the first time that you can see the Pfeiffer Horn. And once you get up there, you're like, holy cow, like I really have all that left to go. I just went through all this to get here. And I am just not even close. So from there, you take a nice little 10-minute sashay through the ridge, and then you come to the knife edge ridge. And this is a true 100% knife edge ridge. This is not for the faint-hearted at all. There is a true and sincere 1,000-foot drop off of each side. And there are boulders up there. Some of them are the size of like refrigerators, and you're going up, over, around them, through them, under them. It will really get you out of your comfort zone for sure. And then once you get across this scary ridge, then you've got another 500 foot straight up to get to the summit. And again, it's straight up. So yeah, this is
wow.
This is a sincere workout. The last part of the hike from the lake to the actual summit, it's only about 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles tops, but you gain a little over 2,000 feet total. So it really is a butt kicker, straight up type climbing. And this is kind of one of those ones where it's a 50-50 thing. If you do it during the summertime or during those two or 3 months where there isn't snow, you can use the rocks for footholds. But on the other hand, I definitely prefer doing this during the snow, which is crampons, ice axe. It's a little bit easier on your feet, but it is a little bit more of a workout. And it's just beautiful 12 months out of the year. But yeah, wintertime has its goods and summertime has its goods too. But beautiful hike for sure.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I would be waving to you all down there from the lake. And and this leads us to Greg. We're going to go back to you. And I'm not going to use the word that you used in your video, but you described this particular head wall, I guess I'm going to call it, or climbing the head wall, as the steepest, sketchiest crap you have ever climbed.
Exactly.
So give us your version of the climb, Greg.
Steve, hit it. It's a lot of gain that you've got to get in such a short period. And like every step from camp, once you leave the lake, is an uphill step. There might be 50 to 60 total steps that you take that aren't actually gaining elevation, but that's it. And the bulk of it is to get from that lower level up to the top. And I've been on some steep trails, but it's kind of hard to describe, just how steep it is. But if you're trying to stand straight up, you can reach out and you're going to touch the trail. Like it's like that for the most part, because it is trafficked. There's a general path that everybody takes up, but it's still very loose, a lot of scree. A lot of you've got to hang on to the rocks, so you don't lose your balance and go backwards. It is a head wall. Like I had read and seen on, movies and stuff like that about head walls, but it's literally what it is. You come to a head and it's straight up. It was awesome. And when Steve was talking about the prominence of the mountain, just how big and massive the mountain is, but you can't see it until you get up there. There's one road that me and Steve were driving around Salt Lake, just goofing around one time, actually on another trip. And we happened to go up that road, and it's probably the only spot that you can actually see the mountain from. But it's beautiful. It's a hidden gem, I'd say, just because you can't see it.
Well, Greg, from your video, you can literally, I don't know if you had a GoPro on your head or what you were filming with, but you can literally see hand over hand you trying to get up there. And I'm like mimicking this as we're talking. And you can kind of tell when you get to that area where you can kind of take a break. So,
right.
And then that's where you pronounce that this was the steepest, sketchiest stuff you had ever seen. But amazing drone work that you did up there as well. So that's phenomenal.
When I made it out to that knife edge ridge, I had my fill of puckering for the day. And that's what I did. I sent the drone up to get the summit shot for me and called it good and just kind of chilled out there on the ridge at, 10,500 feet, something like that, and enjoyed it.
Well, you know what, Greg, I'm right there with you. In fact, like I said, I'm back down at the lake. So congratulations on that. And again, the drone work is phenomenal. There were a couple things that I did notice in the video, and Steve, I'll go back to you, that when you guys left the trailhead, it looked like you had maybe your regular packs on and you had some day packs attached. So talk to us about some of your gear decisions for this type of hike.
Absolutely. And yeah, that is definitely key, especially for anybody that's going to overnight this one. We were all carrying basically two packs up. And yeah, when you watch the video, it looks like I'm just carrying an absolute mountain on my back because I have one backpack attached to another pack. But believe me, my day pack was fairly empty. I just didn't want to roll it up and shove it inside of my big pack to take up extra space. But yeah, no, this is one where you basically haul everything up, you camp for the night, and then the next morning you leave everything behind you except for a day pack, which basically just has a little bit of lunch in it, a couple bars, a couple extra bottles of water, maybe a puffy jacket because the weather can turn on a dime up there, and a shell, and that's about it. So really, like I said, once you get up there to the knife edge ridge, you're crawling in, under, on top of some of these boulders, and you do not want to have a big bulky pack on you to get caught on things, to catch you on things, because all it takes is for you to be moving forward and all of a sudden your pack gets stuck and you lose grip and you're dead. So yeah, small and light is definitely the way to go for sure.
And Greg, coming from the East Coast for this hike, what gear adjustments did you make for an exposed ridge hike like this?
So I took Steve's advice and I brought good trekking poles, good footwear. I brought long pants and shorts. I was wearing convertibles just in case. Sun exposure, he mentioned that. I'm so used to here where we got a lot of green tunnel out there. There is nothing. So sun protection, which is hard to do in the summertime, when it's, it's hot, you're hiking. And but that was a big one. As far as my gear went, it was mostly a clothing adjustment and a footwear adjustment.
And what was it like to leave all your gear like at the camp spot? Because that's not a usual thing kind of on the East Coast. Nobody, unless you're at an actual like campground or something
Right.
like that. So tell me about that.
I did have reservations about it. We actually kind of huddled all of our gear together, but it still looked like we were there camping, but we were gone. It was different. And one thing that I really failed on was I didn't bring enough water. I just in hiking mode, we're going to go see this awesome mountain, throw a couple liters in my pack and let's take off hiking. By the time I made it to the top of that head wall, I was out of water. So that was something that I didn't, I guess I accounted for it, but I didn't take it as seriously as I should have.
Gotcha.
The elevation itself, I was fine hiking at, but I could definitely tell that I was higher. A lot around here, I do a lot of hiking around 6,000 feet. So we're just a few thousand feet higher. It wasn't like I was coming from sea level, but I could still tell, I was getting winded a lot quicker up that first day. And then especially the second day. So water's a huge one there too.
So Steve, before we sign off, I got a question for you and then I'll ask Greg. So do you think Greg would do this again?
Shoo, I think I could probably twist his ear and drag him into it. The one thing, and now that Greg's seen it and Greg's seen pictures of me up there during the winter time, this little knife edge ridge, it's not a joke. It seriously isn't. And when you can see every boulder and every single handhold, and you can see where your feet might end up slipping off, it does kind of get to your mind a little bit. If you go up there during the absolute dead of winter time, everything is completely packed in with snow. And really all you have to do is just keep your balance and you can walk directly across the very top of this ridge. And when I say keep your balance, I mean, you must keep your balance. Otherwise you are going for the ride of your life. But it is in that sense, it is a little bit easier to do during the wintertime. On the other hand, to do something like this during the wintertime, your gear situation changes dramatically. Now you're talking crampons, climbing tools, ice axes. They're, depending on which route that you take, we're talking ropes and, harnesses too. So, and like I said,
oh no,
yeah. And in some ways, wintertime is a little more calming on your nerves. And plus I think, and I know Julie and I, we have talked about this numerous times before. I think part of the reason, even though it's a false sense of safety, I always have this feeling that if I take 1,000-foot fall during wintertime, at least I'm sliding down, snow and I'm probably going to end up dying anyways, but at least I have that, I probably have that, that false sense of, security. Maybe there's a small chance that I might live. Whereas if, you take this fall during the summertime, your head is going to explode once you hit the bottom. So I don't know. There's a little bit of.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's a false sense of security all the way around for me. Spring, summer, fall, winter. This is not a hike for the faint of heart, ladies and gentlemen, by any means whatsoever. Do not take this as your first hike.
Well, I think that.
So
I think that, this is honestly really cool. We've been doing this whole, podcast thing for a while now. Julie, I hope you do put links to Greg's video in the notes. That way people can actually go see what we are talking about. And,
oh, 100%.
Brave it up. Get out there. Try it.
All right, Greg, would you do this again?
Having been there, absolutely. I don't know that I would actually cross the knife edge, but I would definitely go back. Steve, regardless of the reputation he has for policing the flea market, is an exceptional host and guide. So, and we've had I've had the fortune of, us doing multiple trips together now in Utah, Virginia, or here, that if Steve says, let's go, I'm probably going to get in the car. I might not like where we end up, but I'm definitely getting in the car.
There's so much truth to that too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, that is no better way to end. You don't know where you're going to end up, but you're getting in the car. So thanks again, guys. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Greg, for chatting with us. I really, really appreciate it. As always, please go check out Steve's pages on Facebook that are going to be listed in the show notes. I'm also going to add Greg's YouTube channel to the show notes this time. You guys can go no problem. You guys can go directly to those videos of the Pfeiffer Horn. There's also a video on there of the Black Mountain Crest Trail as well. The visuals and the drone work in those videos are amazing. Thanks everybody for listening. Be safe out there and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.